If you're not interested in smartphones that can dive to the bottom of a lake, fall off a mountain, or deal with solar radiation, this video probably isn't for you. I'm Michael Fisher, this is Pocket Now, and this is our quick review of the Kyocera Torque. It only takes one look at the Torque to see exactly who Kyocera built this phone for. Hot tip, it's not spec worshippers. The dual-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Plus at 1.2 GHz, backed up by a gig of RAM and a paltry 4 gigs of onboard storage, expandable via microSD, isn't top of the line. Neither is the 4-inch 480x800 IPS display or the 5-megapixel primary camera. It's a different kind of spec that sets the Torque apart: durability. Sprint has enlisted the aid of outdoor survivalist Bear Grylls to pitch this 14mm thick, 156-gram smartphone to rugged types, consumers who need the toughest of the tough in their mobile devices. The Torque is certified to mil-spec 810G and IP67 ratings, meaning it can stand up to, among others, dust, shock, vibration, blowing rain, solar radiation, salt fog, and immersion for up to 30 minutes in up to 1 meter of water. In fact, on a recent episode of Pocket Now Live, our review unit spent almost the entirety of the hangout in a pitcher of water, even receiving a phone call, with no ill effects. The Torque is chunky and awkward as a result, and its hardware is not without its downsides. The Direct Connect button on the side is far too easy to push, waking up the screen constantly, and despite its durability rating, we were able to jar loose our memory card with fairly slight impacts. The recessed screen is a smart move in terms of scratch protection, but it causes some usability problems, and while it's bright, it's not terribly viewable from the sides. On the plus side, the bottom-placed front-mounted speakers are outstanding. They're incredibly loud in both speakerphone and media modes, and they dry out quickly after being immersed. Unfortunately, the software is something of a speed bump. The Torque ships with Android 4.0. We were expecting that. Back at MWC, Kyocera told us that's a limitation forced on the phone by Sprint's Direct Connect walkie-talkie service, which doesn't yet support Jelly Bean. What disappointed us, though, was its responsiveness, or lack thereof. The UI is laggy, and nowhere is this more apparent than in the keyboard. Whether you use the default swipe or the stock Android keyboard, input lags constantly. It's impossible to get up to a reasonable typing speed even after installing a third-party keyboard like SwiftKey. Whether this is a problem imposed by the ruggedized display or by the Torque's special software build, it's very frustrating. There's also the matter of the pitiful 4 gigs of onboard storage, less than a gig of which is user-accessible out of the box, which makes the use of an expansion card almost mandatory if you're planning on downloading a lot of apps, taking a lot of photos or videos, or participating in really any of the other activities that justify owning a smartphone. We tested the Kyocera Torque over the course of 11 days on Sprint's CDMA and LTE networks in the greater Boston area. We found reception to be good on both networks, but there's an annoying hitch here. Sprint's Direct Connect walkie-talkie feature only works on 3G. So if your phone is using the faster 4G LTE network, you won't get any radio calls, and you won't be able to make any. So you have to force the phone to stay on 3G if you want to receive those. We realize this is probably a technical limitation, but it seems ridiculous to make customers choose between fast data speeds or two-way radio functionality. It's yet another compromise in the Torque's design, one which Direct Connect users in particular aren't likely to appreciate. On the plus side, when you're able to use it, Direct Connect works very well. Walkie-talkie calls made to both modern CDMA and older iDen or Nextel phones went through without a hitch. It's a much less buggy experience than it once was, and the loud speakerphone makes hearing the other party very easy. In terms of phone calls, the Torque packs an interesting addition. The Smart Sonic earpiece uses tissue conduction via a ceramic transducer rather than a traditional speaker. During our testing, that resulted in a little more fuzz on our side of the call, but it also let us hear callers quite well, even in situations with a lot of ambient background noise and even through industrial-grade ear protection. Callers said we didn't sound all that great on their end, calling our sound distant, but they could ultimately understand us with minimal effort. There are plenty of customizations and feature settings available in the camera application, though touch to focus is not supported, which disappointed us. We liked the dedicated camera key on the Torque's hardware, as it let us take an underwater photo or two, which is fun. Results overall are just okay, with fair color reproduction, but exposure problems and fuzzy edges and a serious discoloration at the center of some photos, prevent us from giving this camera a rave review. Overall, the stills will work for casual photos and social media sharing, just don't expect any miracles. Video is fine at 1080p, though we wish there was better focus control and a less jumpy playback during fast pans. Sprint quotes 18.9 hours of talk time on the 2500 mAh battery, which is a big figure, but it's easy to believe. The torque did quite well in our usage testing, easily lasting over a full day with moderate use, and even holding up admirably after 18 hours of medium to heavy use, including a series of benchmarks. Battery endurance was better over 3G, of course, but when we did switch over to LTE, we managed to average speeds of 10 megabits down and just over 4 up. Not amazing, compared to some competitors, but certainly respectable, considering that Sprint's 4G rollout is still in its infancy. If you need to squeeze even more lifetime out of the device, the Torque's Eco Mode and Maximizer are there to manage your milliamp hours. Most rugged smartphones are an exercise in compromise, and the Torque is no exception. The hardware is wonderfully built, perfect for an outdoorsman or a construction worker. But it's writing checks the software can't always cache. The people this phone is targeted at don't have time to fiddle with Android and tweak their settings to optimize their smartphone experience. They need their phone to just work. And thanks mostly to the awful typing experience, the Torque often doesn't, unless you move at a very slow and deliberate pace and wait for the software to catch up to you. That gets old very quickly, and if you're trying to get things done on any kind of a schedule, it becomes infuriating. As a voice-centric device, the Torque does a nice job, especially in terms of its speaker, its battery life, and its ruggedness. But what point is paying for the bells and whistles of a smartphone without being able to fully harness its smarter features? There are already a bevy of cheaper feature phones out there that are just as rugged. Kyocera has said that it has plans to upgrade the Torque to Jelly Bean when Sprint's Direct Connect service is ready, though, so if you're willing to trust that update improves the device's responsiveness, the Torque can be had for $99 on a 2-year Sprint contract. We don't advocate buying any phone based on such an assumption, but those searching for a rugged smartphone have always been faced with limited options full of, once again, compromise. And that holds true here. We give the Kyocera Torque for Sprint a 6.5 out of 10. That's going to do it for our quick review of the Kyocera Torque. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you have something to say. Follow us at all our social media destinations. And thank you for watching. More coming from Pocket now, so stay tuned.